I opened the door barefoot, the final rent notice still taped to my fridge behind me, and there she stood.
Sloane.
My sister, wrapped in a camel-colored designer coat that probably cost more than my car, wrist clinking with gold bangles, phone in one manicured hand, and a tiny dog tucked into the crook of her other arm like an accessory. She didn't ask to come in. She just stepped past me like she owned the place, her heels clicking against my cheap linoleum floor. "Mom and Dad said you'd cover my card this month," she announced, glancing around my cramped apartment with thinly veiled disgust. I'm a little short. Behind her, through my open door, I saw a driver waiting beside a glossy black SUV with the engine still running. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I had just spent 20 minutes that morning deciding between buying groceries or paying the electric bill. And here was Sloane, asking me to cover what I knew would be thousands of dollars like she was requesting a latte refill. "I can't," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Sloane, I don't have it." She tilted her head, her smile widening into something cruel and familiar. It was the same expression she wore in high school when she told everyone I shopped at thrift stores. "They fund me because I'm the one with potential," she said softly, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. You're just stable." The word stable landed like an insult, like something rotten thrown at my feet. That was the moment I realized my parents hadn't just picked a favorite. They had built her an entire life with my silence. My name is Alyssa Kane, and I'm 31 years old. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Orlando that I keep clean with lists and determination and whatever luck I can scrape together. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for more interesting revenge stories. I work as a junior architect at a firm downtown, pulling 60-hour weeks trying to prove I belong there. Most nights, I come home exhausted, heat up whatever's left in my fridge, and fall asleep on a couch I bought secondhand 3 years ago. I grew up as the reliable daughter, the one who packed her own lunches in elementary school because Mom was busy driving Sloane to ballet practice. The one who took the bus home after school while Sloane got picked up in the minivan. The one who learned how to stretch $20 through an entire week while Sloane complained that her allowance wasn't enough for the designer jeans she wanted. My parents called it building character. They said I was learning responsibility. They said Sloane needed more attention because she was artistic and sensitive and had potential that needed nurturing. Meanwhile, I learned to fix my own bike, do my own laundry, and never ask for anything because asking felt like begging. Sloane floated through life in apartments with city views, receiving temporary loans from our parents that were never repaid, experiencing surprise upgrades that always just fell from the sky. I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself to focus on my own life and let them handle theirs. But that night, after she left, I couldn't stop thinking about that word. Stable. Like I was dependable furniture. Something they could lean on without ever having to maintain. I remembered the exact moment the pattern started. I was 9 years old, standing in our garage with Dad while he showed me how to fix a leaky gutter. My hands were dirty and my knees hurt from kneeling on concrete. Inside the house, through the window, I could see Sloane in her pink tutu, twirling in front of Mom while they discussed her upcoming recital. "You're good at this stuff, kiddo," Dad had said, tightening a bolt. "Real practical. That's a gift." At the time, I thought he was complimenting me. I didn't realize practical was code for "you'll never need our help." That Christmas, Sloane unwrapped a bracelet Mom had bought in Paris during a work trip. Silver and delicate, with tiny charms that caught the light. I opened my gift next.
Socks.
Thick wool ones for winter. Mom had smiled at me warmly. "You mentioned your feet getting cold at night, remember?" I had mentioned it.
Once.
3 months earlier. I wore those socks until they had holes in them because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Sloane lost the bracelet within a year and got a replacement, without asking. That was the first time I learned silence was cheaper than fairness. If I didn't complain, they wouldn't have to explain why she got Paris and I got wool. If I stayed quiet, everyone stayed comfortable. So I built my life around being low maintenance, around never asking for anything, around pretending the inequality didn't carve itself deeper into my chest every single year. 3 weeks after Sloane's visit, My credit card declined at the office supply store. I was buying printer ink for a presentation, standing at the register while my coworker waited behind me. The cashier swiped it twice, then looked at me apologetically. "It's saying insufficient funds," she said quietly. Heat flooded my face. "That's impossible. I checked my balance this morning." My coworker, a woman named Brenda who always brought homemade cookies on Fridays, stepped forward. "I can spot you, honey. No problem." "No," I said quickly, my voice too sharp. "Thank you, but no. I'll figure it out." I left without the ink. Walked back to the office feeling like everyone was staring at me even though nobody was. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, going through every transaction from the past month.
Rent.
Utilities. Groceries.
Gas.
Nothing unusual. Nothing that would overdraw my account. Then I saw it. A linked account I didn't recognize. A name that wasn't mine. The balance showed a recent increase of $4,200, charged to something labeled family authorization. My hands started shaking before my brain fully processed what I was seeing. Someone had used my name. Someone had linked my credit to an account I never opened. And whoever did it had access to everything. I called the bank's customer service line and waited on hold for 17 minutes, my heart hammering against my ribs the entire time. The bank representative was kind but detached, reading from a script that probably covered situations like mine 100 times a week. "Yes, ma'am, I can see the account linked to your name. It was authorized through a family member with administrative privileges." "What does that mean?" I asked, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "It means someone with access to your personal information set up the account and listed you as a guarantor." The signature authorization was submitted digitally through an email address registered under Patricia Kane. Patricia Kane. My mother. The room tilted. I had to brace myself against the table to stay upright. I never signed anything. I never gave anyone permission to use my name. "I understand, ma'am. If you believe this is fraudulent, you'll need to file a formal dispute. I can send you the paperwork." I hung up without saying goodbye. My mother had used my name, my credit, my financial stability, and she had done it without asking, without telling me, without considering for even a second that it might destroy me. I sat there in the dark, staring at the screen, whispering the words aloud to make them real. They used my name. The betrayal felt physical, like something sharp lodged between my ribs that I couldn't pull out without bleeding everywhere. I called my mother the next morning before work, standing in my bathroom with the door closed like I was hiding from myself. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and unbothered. "Alyssa, sweetheart. What's going on?" "I need to talk to you about a credit account," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "There's something linked to my name that I didn't authorize." Silence. Then a small laugh.
Oh, that.
"It's just bookkeeping, sweetheart. You're overreacting." Overreacting. My voice cracked. "Mom, you used my credit without asking me." "Sloan needed a little help getting her boutique started," she said, like that explained everything. "You know how these things work. She needed a guarantor, and you have good credit. It's not a big deal." A little help. The words burned. When I told my parents I wanted to open my own design studio 3 years ago, they called it unrealistic. They said I should focus on steady employment instead of chasing dreams. But Sloan's boutique, her vague idea about selling curated lifestyle products to influencers, that got funding. That got my name signed to documents I never saw. "You should have asked me," I said, my throat tightening. "You would have said yes," Mom replied smoothly. "You always do." I hung up while she was still talking. My hands shook so badly, I had to sit on the edge of the bathtub until the dizziness passed. That afternoon, my landlord slipped an envelope under my door. Final notice. The rent was 5 days late, and if I didn't pay by the end of the week, I'd be evicted. I sat on my couch staring at the paper, feeling the weight of it pressing down on my chest like a physical thing. I opened Instagram.
I don't know why.
Maybe I needed to confirm what I already knew. Sloan's profile loaded, and there she was. Posted 2 hours earlier. A photo of her lying on a massage table, cucumber slices over her eyes, a champagne flute balanced on a bamboo tray beside her. The caption read, "Self-Care Sunday. You can't pour from an empty cup." I scrolled through her feed. Bottomless brunches. Boutique hotel lobbies. First-class airplane seats with her feet propped on the tray table, toes freshly painted. Every single post was a little knife. Every filter-perfect smile was proof that my struggle funded her comfort. I screenshotted everything.
I didn't know why yet.
I just knew I needed evidence of something I could name. Proof that the exhaustion crushing me wasn't imaginary. Proof that while I chose between food and electricity, she chose between rose and champagne. Tears blurred the screen. I wiped them away and kept scrolling, kept saving, kept building a file of her life that I was apparently paying for. The words stable echoed in my head. She had potential. I was just useful. Dad showed up at my apartment 2 days later with Tupperware containers full of leftover casserole. He looked uncomfortable standing in my doorway, shifting his weight from one foot to the other like he wanted to leave before he even came in. "Your mother made too much," he said, handing me the containers. "Thought you could use some home cooking." I took them, recognizing the gesture for what it was.
Guilt.
He knew something was wrong, and food was easier than conversation. We stood there in awkward silence until I finally asked the question burning in my chest. "Did you know about the credit card? The account Mom opened in my name?"
His face changed.
Just for a second. A flicker of something, shame, maybe, before he looked away. "Don't worry about it, Alyssa. It's handled." "Handled?" I repeated. "Dad, I'm 5 days from being evicted. It's not handled." He shifted again, glancing toward the hallway like he was calculating his escape route. "Your mother handles the finances. I just sign where she tells me to sign." The admission hung there between us. He knew. Maybe not all the details, but he knew enough. And he'd let it happen anyway because it was easier than standing up to Mom. Easier than protecting me. When he left, I noticed his hands trembling as he pulled his keys from his pocket. He knew. And he was ashamed. But shame without action is just noise. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, going through every bank statement I could access online. 6 months of records.
A year.
Then 2. I matched purchases to Sloane's Instagram posts like I was solving a crime. A designer handbag posted in March matched a charge of $3,200 on the family account. A flight to Cabo in July lined up with a round-trip ticket purchase for 2. A champagne brunch in October showed up as a restaurant charge the same day. Every single item I found was a betrayal carved into my balance. Every charge was proof that my rent money, my grocery budget, my carefully managed life was being siphoned off to fund her lifestyle. I made a spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, descriptions. I took screenshots of her posts and matched them to bank records, building a timeline that showed exactly how much of my financial stability had been sacrificed for her comfort. The total came to over $47,000 in 2 years. Charges linked to accounts with my name attached, authorizations I never gave, debt I never agreed to carry. I sat back in my chair, staring at the numbers, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. The money meant for my rent was paying for her wardrobe. The money I needed for groceries was funding her vacations. And my parents had orchestrated all of it without a second thought. The next morning, a memory surfaced that I'd buried years ago. My grandmother, before she passed, had set up a scholarship fund. She called it her legacy gift. Money meant for both me and Sloane to use for education or starting a business. Something to give us a foundation. I remembered her sitting in our living room, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, telling me, "This is for both of you girls.
Equal.
I want you both to have the same opportunities." I'd been 23 then, fresh out of college, drowning in student loans, too proud to ask for help. When I asked my parents about accessing the fund to pay down my debt, they said it wasn't the right time. They said the money was tied up in investments. They said I should focus on building my career first. I called the family lawyer, Martin Hale, the man who had handled my grandmother's estate. He remembered me immediately. "Alyssa Kane," he said warmly. "It's been years. What can I do for you?" "The scholarship fund my grandmother set up," I said. "Is there still money in it?" A pause. Then, carefully, the fund was emptied 5 years ago. Authorized for business expansion expenses. My chest tightened. Whose business? Another pause, longer this time.
Sloane's.
Your parents submitted the paperwork. I assumed you knew. I didn't. Nobody told me. My grandmother's legacy, the equal opportunity she wanted us both to have, had been drained to fund Sloane's lifestyle brand that lasted less than a year. That Sunday, my parents invited me to dinner at their favorite restaurant. A place with cloth napkins and a wine list thicker than the menu. I arrived early, sitting in my car in the parking lot, trying to calm my racing heart. I had printed copies of bank statements, screenshots, the lawyer's confirmation about the fund. Everything tucked into a folder in my bag. Sloane arrived in a car I didn't recognize, stepping out in heels and a dress that shimmered under the restaurant lights. She kissed Mom on both cheeks like they were in a European film. Dad held the door open, beaming. We ordered, made small talk. I waited until the appetizers arrived, until everyone was settled and comfortable. Then I pulled out the folder. I want to talk about Grandmother's scholarship fund, I said. The table went silent. Mom's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Dad's eyes darted to her, then back to me. What about it? Mom asked, her tone carefully neutral. It was emptied 5 years ago. For Sloane's business. The one that closed after 8 months. Sloane's face flushed. That's not. I have the records, I interrupted, spreading the papers across the table. $47,000 from the fund. Plus another $30,000 from accounts with my name attached as a guarantor. Accounts I never authorized. Mom's expression turned to ice. We invested in potential, Alyssa. Sloane had a vision. You were stable. You didn't need it. The word again. Stable. Like furniture. Like something that would always be there, never requiring maintenance or care. Dad said nothing. He just stared at his plate like it held answers. I stood up, my hands surprisingly steady. I needed it. I needed help. But you decided I didn't matter enough to ask. Sloane called after me as I walked out. Jealousy doesn't suit you, Alyssa. I didn't look back. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the dinner, every word that had been said. My architect brain, trained to see patterns and structures, started mapping connections. Every lie led to another. Every authorization, every signature, every transfer built a structure of deception that stretched back years. I got up and opened my laptop. Created a new folder labeled Family Records. Started organizing everything I'd found into categories. Bank statements in one subfolder. Screenshots in another. Legal documents in a third. I built a timeline, a visual representation of how the money flowed from accounts tied to my name into Sloane's lifestyle. Each transaction was a thread. When I pulled them together, they formed a clear picture. My parents hadn't just enabled Sloane's life. They had actively built it using my credit, my name, my financial stability as the foundation. They had forged signatures, opened accounts, created guarantees, all without asking me. The sun was rising when I finally closed my laptop. I looked at the folder on my desktop, at the evidence I'd carefully organized, and felt something shift inside me. They had built her a kingdom on my back. Used my silence and my stability as construction materials. But if they could build something with my name, I could tear it down. Legally. Methodically. With the same precision I used to draft blueprints. Martin Hale's office was in a historic building downtown, the kind with marble floors and wood-paneled walls that smelled like old books and furniture polish. I sat across from him, my folder of evidence spread across his desk, while he reviewed everything with the careful attention of someone who had seen this before. Your grandmother was very specific in her will, he said, tapping the original trust documents. The fund was meant to be divided equally between you and your sister. Using it entirely for one person's business venture without your knowledge or consent violates the terms. Can we get it back?
I asked.
We can try. But more importantly, these account authorizations, he held up the bank statements showing my name as guarantor. These are potentially fraudulent. You never signed these? I shook my head. Never saw them until 2 weeks ago. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. This is going to get difficult, Alyssa. Family cases always do. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the rent notice on my fridge, about choosing between food and electricity, about Sloane's champagne brunches and designer coats, about my parents' casual dismissal of my struggle while they funded her comfort. They made it difficult, I said. I'm just making it legal. He nodded slowly, then reached for his phone. Then let's start with a formal demand for restitution and a motion to freeze any accounts with your name attached. We'll need depositions from your parents and your sister. It won't be pretty. Nothing about this has been pretty, I replied. He smiled, sad and knowing. Then let's get to work. Sloane showed up at my apartment 3 days later. I heard her pounding on the door before I saw her, her voice sharp with anger even through the walls. Alyssa, open this door right now. I opened it. She stormed in, her face flushed, her designer bag swinging from her shoulder like a weapon. Mom says you're digging around like a lunatic. She says you hired a lawyer. She spun to face me, her eyes wild. What the hell is wrong with you? I stayed calm. I had practiced this. Rehearsed it. You forged my signature, Sloane. Multiple times. That's fraud. I didn't forge anything, she shouted. Mom handled all the paperwork. Then Mom forged it. Either way, my name is on accounts I never authorized. Debt I never agreed to carry. She faltered, the anger cracking just slightly. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. You have good credit. I needed help. You could have asked me. You would have said no. Exactly. I crossed my arms. That's why you didn't ask. Because you knew it was wrong. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words that wouldn't come. Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. A text from Martin. I hope you recorded that. I had. Every word. Mom called that night. Her voice trembled with what she probably thought was concern, but sounded more like controlled panic. Alyssa, sweetheart, what are you doing? You're tearing this family apart. I put her on speaker and started the recording app. I'm protecting myself from fraud. Fraud? Don't be dramatic. We were helping your sister get started. You know how hard it is for young entrepreneurs. I was a young entrepreneur 3 years ago, I said quietly, when I wanted to start my design studio. You called it unrealistic. Silence. Then, carefully, that was different.
How?
Sloane has vision. She has potential. She caught herself, but not quickly enough. You've always been able to take care of yourself. There it was again. The thing they wouldn't say out loud, but believed completely. I didn't need help. I didn't deserve investment. I was just stable. Reliable. The foundation they could build on without maintenance. I'm done being your foundation, I said. If you want to fight this legally, that's your choice. But I'm not backing down. She hung up without another word. 20 minutes later, Dad texted. A single line, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to stop it. I stared at the message for a long time. The apology felt real, but it also felt insufficient. Like saying sorry after watching someone drown because you didn't know how to swim. I didn't respond. I just saved the text in my evidence folder. Martin filed the motion the following week. A formal demand for restitution of misappropriated inheritance funds, plus damages for fraudulent use of my credit. He warned me the process would be invasive. Depositions. Subpoenas. Family members forced to testify under oath. It's going to get ugly, he said, sliding the paperwork across his desk for my signature. Your parents will fight this. Your sister will fight this. People will take sides. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. They made it ugly years ago. I'm just making it visible. He nodded. Then sign here, here, and here. I signed. Each signature felt like reclaiming something. My name, my credit, my right to be treated as more than a convenient tool for someone else's success. When I finished, Martin gathered the papers and stood. I'll file this today. You should expect a response within 2 weeks. I stood too, slinging my bag over my shoulder. Thank you, Martin. Thank me when we win, he replied. But he was smiling. Walking out of his office, I felt lighter. Not happy. Not vindicated. Just lighter. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. Now that weight was shifting. Slowly, but shifting. Word spread fast. Within a week, the family gossip network was buzzing. Aunts and uncles I barely spoke to called my parents to ask what was going on. Friends from my parents' social circle reached out to Mom with concern and confusion. And Sloane, predictably, took to social media. Her Instagram story showed a blurry photo of a legal document with the caption, "Some people can't handle other people's success. Guess jealousy runs deep." I screenshotted it, added it to my folder. Let her keep talking. Every public statement she made, every dismissive comment, every attempt to paint me as bitter or jealous just added credibility to my case. Martin had warned me this would happen. People would try to shame me into backing down. They would call me dramatic, vindictive, selfish. But I wasn't being vindictive. I was being precise. There's a difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is emotional. Justice is procedural. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was trying to stop them from hurting me. My coworker Brenda noticed I seemed distracted during a meeting. She pulled me aside afterward, her face full of motherly concern. "You okay, honey? You seem stressed." I smiled, tired but genuine. "Just dealing with some family stuff. Legal things." She squeezed my arm. "Family's complicated, but you're tougher than you look." I wasn't sure about that, but I was learning. Dad showed up at my apartment again unannounced. This time, he looked worse. Thinner. Older. Like the weight of everything was finally pressing down on him too. I let him in, made coffee, and we sat at my small kitchen table in uncomfortable silence. "Your mother's angry," he said finally. "She thinks you're trying to destroy the family." "I'm trying to protect myself," I replied. He nodded slowly, staring into his coffee cup. "I know. And you're right too." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and tired. "I signed things, Alyssa. Papers your mother put in front of me. I didn't read them. I just trusted her to handle it." "Why?" He exhaled, long and shaky. "Because it was easier than asking questions. Your mother has always been the strong one. The one who makes decisions. I thought I was helping by staying out of her way." "You were helping her hurt me," I said quietly. He flinched. "I know. I see that now. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." We sat there for a while longer, the silence less uncomfortable now. More sad. When he stood to leave, he pulled me into a hug. A real one. The first one I could remember in years. "I'll testify," he said against my shoulder. "If your lawyer needs me, I'll tell them everything I know." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. After he left, I sat at the table for a long time, crying for the first time since this all started. Not from anger, from something else. Relief, maybe. Or grief for the family we could have been. The depositions took place in Martin's office over 3 separate days. Mom went first. She sat across from Martin and me, her posture perfect, her expression calm. But as Martin presented the evidence, bank statements showing her email authorizations, digital signatures that didn't match mine, transfers coordinated with Sloane's purchases, her composure started to crack. "Mrs. Kane, can you explain why you listed your daughter Alyssa as a guarantor on these accounts without her knowledge?" "She has excellent credit," Mom said stiffly. "It was a practical decision. A practical decision that violated her financial autonomy and trust. I was helping my younger daughter succeed, at the expense of your older daughter's financial stability." Mom's jaw tightened. "Alyssa has always been self-sufficient. She didn't need our help." "Did you ask her if she needed help? Or did you assume?" Silence. Sloane's deposition was worse. She arrived overdressed and defensive, answering questions with clipped, irritated responses until Martin showed her the timeline. Every charge, every post, every instance of her lifestyle being funded by accounts tied to my name. "This wasn't my idea," she blurted suddenly. "It was Mom's." She said Alyssa would understand. She said Alyssa always helped the family. Martin glanced at me. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, something settled. The admission. The confirmation.
It was all there on record now.
Mom's lawyer jumped in, trying to control the damage, but it was too late. Sloan had broken, and the case was won. As we left, Mom caught my arm in the hallway. How could you do this to your family? I looked at her directly. Exactly my question, Mom. The court's ruling came 6 weeks later. Full restitution of the misappropriated inheritance funds, plus damages for fraudulent credit use. My parents were ordered to repay everything within 90 days, with funds to come from the liquidation of shared assets if necessary. Sloan's boutique closed within 2 weeks. She couldn't afford the lease, without parental funding. Mom's social circle evaporated. News of the case had spread, and the scandal was too much for her carefully curated friendships. Dad moved into a smaller apartment temporarily while they sorted through their finances. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just packed up my apartment, gave notice to my landlord, and started looking for a new place. Somewhere bigger. Somewhere without the weight of old memories pressing down on every corner. The day I moved out, I took the final rent notice off my fridge. The one that had been there the day Sloan showed up in her designer coat. I folded it carefully and threw it in the trash. That version of my life was over. I didn't know what came next, but I knew it would be mine. A letter arrived 2 weeks after I moved into my new apartment. A modest 2-bedroom place with actual sunlight and space to breathe. The envelope was addressed in my father's handwriting, careful and shaky. Inside was a single page. Alyssa, I'm proud of you for standing tall when I couldn't. I'm ashamed it took losing everything for me to see what we did to you. Your mother and I are working on things, but I don't know if we can fix this. I sold my car to help with the repayment. I wanted you to have this. It's not enough. It won't ever be enough. But it's a start. Love, Dad. Clipped to the letter was a check. Not huge, but more than he could afford to give. I sat on my new couch, the one I'd bought without checking my bank balance 3 times first, and cried. Not angry tears. Not bitter tears. Just release. He was trying. It was late. It was insufficient. But it was something. I deposited the check the next day and used half of it to start a savings account. The other half I donated to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Kids who, like me, had learned to be self-sufficient too early. 3 months later, my phone rang.
Sloan.
I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Alyssa. Her voice was small, unfamiliar. I need help. I waited. I'm broke, she continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. The boutique's gone.
My apartment's gone.
I'm staying with a friend, but I can't stay forever. Mom and Dad are selling the house. Everything's falling apart. I listened to her breathing on the other end of the line. Waited for the ask. The demand. The assumption that I would fix this like I fixed everything else. Please, she whispered. I don't know what to do. I thought about the years of silence. The stability I provided that nobody acknowledged. The foundation I built that everyone walked across without noticing. I thought about the word stable and how they wielded it like an insult while depending on it like oxygen. Now you know what it feels like, I said quietly. To be the one left behind. I hung up. Then I blocked her number. Deleted her contact. Removed her from every social media platform. It wasn't cruel. It was necessary. I couldn't help her without drowning myself again. 6 months after the ruling, I signed the papers for my first house. Not an apartment. Not a rental. A townhouse I had designed renovations for myself. 3 bedrooms. Natural light pouring through skylights I'd specified. A small office where I could finally work on my own design projects. I ran my hands over the keys, feeling their weight. My name on the deed. My credit. My future. Nobody could take this from me, because I built it myself. Martin called that afternoon. Congratulations on the house. You've earned it. Thank you for everything, Martin. Actually, there's one more thing, he said, his tone shifting. I was going through your grandmother's papers again.
There's something else she left.
A sealed letter with instructions to give it to you when you achieved financial independence. My breath caught. A letter? Can you come by the office tomorrow? I went. Martin handed me an envelope, yellowed with age, my name written across the front in my grandmother's careful handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. For the granddaughter who builds instead of takes. Alyssa, if you're reading this, it means you've stood on your own 2 feet despite everything. I knew your parents would favor Sloan. I saw it happening even before I passed. That's why I made arrangements. The scholarship fund was a test. I knew they would misuse it. I wanted to see if you would fight back. And you did. There's a second fund. This one only in your name. Managed by Martin. Use it to build something lasting. Something no one can take from you. I always believed in you. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Love, Grandma. Attached were documents establishing a trust fund. $50,000. In my name alone. Untouchable by anyone else. I looked at Martin, my vision blurred with tears. She knew, I whispered. She knew, he confirmed. And she wanted you to fight before you received it. To prove to yourself that you could. I used the money to establish a scholarship fund of my own. The Alyssa Kane Foundation for Self-Sufficient Students. Awards for young people who worked through college, who supported themselves, who built their futures without family safety nets. The launch ceremony took place at a community center downtown. Local reporters came. They photographed the first recipients, photographed me standing beside them, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. One reporter asked about my inspiration. I thought about lying, about giving a polished, media-friendly answer. But I told the truth instead. I was the reliable one in my family, I said. The stable one. The one who didn't need help. Except I did need help. I just learned not to ask for it. This scholarship is for students like me. The ones who figure it out on their own, because nobody offers to help them first. The article ran the next week with the headline, Local Architect Turns Family Struggle into Opportunity for Others. My phone stayed silent. No call from my parents. No message from Sloan. They weren't there. And that was okay. I didn't need them to validate what I'd built. This was mine. At the ceremony, I met a student named Maya. She was 19, working 2 jobs while taking classes full-time. She reminded me of myself at that age. Determined. Exhausted. Trying to prove she deserved space in the world. Thank you, she said, gripping her award certificate like it might disappear. This means I can cut back to 1 job. Focus on my classes. I hugged her. You're going to do amazing things. So are you, she replied. I already was. A year after everything fell apart, I stood in my home office, looking at the designs spread across my desk. I'd started taking freelance clients. Small projects at first. A kitchen renovation. A backyard studio. But word spread. My work was good. Precise. Thoughtful. The kind of designs that felt like home. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Just a photo. Him standing in front of a small apartment building, holding a paintbrush. The caption read, starting over. 1 wall at a time. I smiled. Texted back, proud of you. He was trying. They all were, in their own broken ways. Mom had started therapy, according to Dad's occasional updates. Sloan had moved across the country, started working a regular job. The family we were was gone. Maybe the family we could become was still being built. But I wasn't waiting for them anymore. My business was growing. The scholarship fund had awarded grants to 15 students in its first year. I had a home I loved, work I was proud of, a life that felt genuinely mine. Some nights, I still thought about that moment at my door. Sloan in her designer coat, the rent notice on my fridge, the words stable landing like an insult. That version of myself felt like someone else now. Someone smaller. Someone who accepted less because she thought she deserved less. I wasn't that person anymore. The revenge I'd sought wasn't about destroying them. It was about building something they couldn't touch. Something they couldn't diminish. A life constructed on my own terms, with my own strength, funded by my own work. They built Sloan a palace out of lies and borrowed stability. But I built a life out of truth. A foundation no one could shake because I laid every stone myself. My laptop chimed. An email from a potential client. A young couple wanting to design their first home together. I opened it, read their hopeful words about fresh starts and building something lasting, and started drafting my response. Outside my office window, the sun was setting over Orlando. The sky turned orange and pink, painting everything in warm light. I thought about my grandmother's letter, about her belief that I would fight, that I would build, that I would prove to myself what she already knew. I wasn't just stable anymore. I was strong. There's a difference. And this life, the one I'd fought for, designed carefully, constructed piece by piece, this one was mine.
Completely.
Finally. Irrevocably mine.
No one could take it from me.
Not with my name, not with my credit, not with my silence. Because I wasn't silent anymore. I was building. And I would keep building. One project at a time. One boundary at a time. One choice at a time. The quiet revenge of a life well lived. The loudest statement I could make. Not through confrontation or cruelty, but through existence. Through success. Through the simple, powerful act of thriving despite everything they did to keep me small. They wanted me stable. I became unshakable. And that made all the difference.